On Sunday, October 5th, Russia made a serious miscalculation by launching a large-scale attack on Ukraine's major cities. This time, however, the Ukrainians were ready. President Zelensky had warned Putin that if Moscow targeted Ukraine's urban centers, Russia would find itself exposed in turn. The retaliation was swift. Today, roughly 40,000 Russians are without power just as winter approaches, unable to heat their homes. Putin is reportedly in a state of panic, gradually realizing that Ukraine's missile capabilities are far more formidable than he anticipated. This winter won't resemble the past three, when Russia struck Ukrainian cities with apparent impunity. Now, the war is knocking on Russia's own doorstep. Let's break down how events unfolded. That night, October 5th, became one of the most harrowing for civilians across Ukraine. Russia unleashed an assault involving roughly 500 drones and more than 50 missiles, including Kyiv ballistic missiles.
Ёбана в рот! Пизда, блядь! Ёбаный в рот!
The targets included major cities in Oblast, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Sumy, Kharkiv, Odessa, and more. Ukrainian air defenses shot down over 400 hostile objects and 8 missiles, but still, 57 drones penetrated defenses and struck 20 locations. The toll: at least 6 civilians killed, including a 15-year-old girl, and at least 18 wounded. In the western city of Lviv, energy infrastructure bore the brunt of the attack, as temperatures dropped nationwide. 2 districts lost power entirely, and public transit was halted. The Russians were clearly attempting to cripple critical installations in industrial zones. A grave misstep by Putin. Just weeks prior, Zelensky had publicly warned that Ukraine now controls long-range missiles capable of reaching deep into Russia. The message was clear. If Moscow attempts to darken Ukrainian cities, it risks the same fate. Zelensky's warning was explicit. Civilized nations don't initiate aggression, he said, but that doesn't mean they're weak. If Russia threatened rolling blackouts in Kyiv, then the Kremlin should regard blackouts in Moscow as a distinct possibility. Ukraine's retaliation was fierce and immediate. In response, over 200 drones were launched into Russian territory, along with an undetermined number of Ukrainian-made missiles, possibly Neptune or Flamingo models, though this remains unconfirmed. Russia's defenses failed to intercept everything, from Crimea to Belgrade and beyond. Footage shows fiery explosions lighting up the skies. Darkness and silence, sometimes more telling than any words, became Russia's new reality. In Belgrade region alone, more than 40,000 residents lost electricity. The governor reportedly went into hiding during the attack. The region's thermal power plant was hit, and video captures the blast in real time. Russian authorities denied damage. They claimed to have shot down all drones and missiles, yet they offered no explanation for the blackout. Similar patterns emerged in Bryansk, where a thermal power plant caught fire following a massive explosion nearby. Russian officials again insisted they intercepted all hostile objects, but that claim stretches credibility in light of mounting evidence. Furthermore, explosions were heard in Crimea, events Russia cannot deny, as Ukraine publicly claimed responsibility. The most dramatic was at the Fodisha oil terminal, Crimea's largest oil depot. Flames erupted high and wide. Observers say fuel tanks must have been full, as the fire was visible from miles away. Ukraine also struck an ammunition depot used to support Russian battalions in Crimea and targeted a major Russian industrial plant producing explosives, military munitions, air defense components, and anti-tank weapons. These are only the confirmed attacks in the first hours. More may emerge. What's clear is that it was a disastrous evening for Russia and for Putin personally. Even 12 hours later, some strikes were still ongoing. Official Russian statements claimed they had intercepted 250 drones. But discrepancies emerged. Russia reportedly canceled around 90 flight paths, and media across the country captures images of fires and drone attacks. One clip shows the Belgorod thermal power plant still under assault. Meanwhile, 40,000 people wait anxiously for their power to be restored. Ukraine's fierce response aims to establish a doctrine, deterrence through punishment. I first encountered this argument via YouTuber and geopolitical analyst Andreas Nilsson, who highlighted it powerfully in his recent analysis. His video is worth watching for full context. But in brief, Ukraine has developed independent long and medium-range missile capabilities, like Flamingo and domestically produced Neptune, free from external restrictions. That means Kyiv decides when and where to strike, deep into Russian territory. These homegrown missiles differ from those Ukraine received from its Western allies, such as ATACMS or Storm Shadow, which come with usage conditions. Now, Ukraine can independently target Russian infrastructure at will within missile range. At the war's outset, Ukraine lacked this freedom. Russian strikes on Ukrainian energy installations were met only by drone counterattacks, but drones carry smaller payloads. Now, the balance has shifted. Russia and Ukraine are fully aware when Zelensky publicly warned that continued Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure this winter would provoke serious consequences. Moscow responded almost immediately. The day after Ukraine's warning came a Russian strike on a Ukrainian power plant. Ukraine struck back hours later, targeting a power plant in Belgorod. That cycle repeated last night, but with far greater intensity. Ukraine wants Russia to understand that the era of unpunished aggression is over. Cities, power plants, and critical utilities will no longer be off limits. Ukraine is stronger today than it was even a few years ago, and Zelensky's statements reflect that confidence. The Russians do not and cannot comprehend the full cost of these blackouts. They lack moral grounding, yet they also fail to grasp the physical and societal toll. Ukraine does not indiscriminately target civilians. It focuses on military and energy targets tied to the war machine. Russia, meanwhile, profits from selling energy, using the revenue to fund military operations. Ukraine's actions are not vengeful for their own sake. They are deliberate strategic pressure. We don't wish for war, we long for peace. But peace only comes when pressure is sufficient to force honest reckoning. Pressure from the West now is real, but scattered and insufficient. European and U.S. pressure must increase. The global South remains largely silent, its influence absent. Another lever is internal Russian pressure. Citizens are being deliberately shaken. When people no longer sleep easy under their government, when the pain becomes intolerable, then questions arise, and leaders are forced to answer. In a tweet following these events, Zelensky named the missiles Ukraine used in attacks on Russia. He reiterated his commitment. "They are all Ukrainian comrades," he said, and pledged to escalate every single day.